speaking of crises, let's talk about the situation in Ukraine. After nearly 2 years of the war and an immeasurable loss of lives, there seems to be no end in sight for Ukraine's many problems. You see, Russia has escalated its offensive, sending a clear warning to Ukraine's Western supporters. It's basically saying, do not test our resolve to continue this war. In fact, reports say Putin is growing increasingly desperate. His aim is to swiftly capture more Ukrainian territories. But why this urgency? It's because Putin wants to secure a new 6-year term in office through what many perceive as mere rubber stamp presidential elections. It is scheduled for March, just 2 months away. So naturally, he is eager and will do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. A part of the strategy, it seems, therefore, is to ignore the body count of his own troops. He is throwing more and more men into the battleground. In Ukraine's eastern front line, a fierce fight is underway. The city at the center of Russia's offensive is called Avdiivka. The city located in Donetsk region has now become the symbol of a grinding war in which neither Ukraine nor Russia have made any breakthrough. Still, the fighting rages on. The Russian troops have Avdiivka encircled. Capturing this city, you see, will allow Russia to threaten Pokrovsk, an important transport hub about 20 miles away. And so Putin, with his high tolerance for casualties, is pouring troops into the battle for Avdiivka. Russia is conducting the so-called human wave attacks here. What's that, you ask? A human wave attack is an infantry tactic in which an attacker, in this case Russia, conducts unprotected frontal assault. It involves densely concentrated infantry formations against the enemy line, intended to overrun the defenders, in this case the Ukrainian forces. In short, it is a melee combat and a lot of soldiers die as a result. Now that should tell you just how desperate the Russian forces are. Both sides see Avdiivka as key to Russia's aim of wresting full control, especially in 2 Ukrainian provinces, Donetsk and Luhansk. If Russia takes over Avdiivka, it will have full control over Donetsk, and it will also deal a psychological blow to Ukrainian forces. The Ukrainian troops have made only incremental gains in the counteroffensive they launched in June. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky traveled to the front line today, in fact. He visited the troops with a mission to maintain morale and assess the situation on the ground. Zelensky says that the war has entered a new phase and the coming of winter is expected to complicate the fighting. He conceded that the summer counteroffensive had failed to produce dramatic results. But he blamed that on shortages in weapons and ground forces. He said, despite setbacks, Ukraine will not back down.
We have a new phase of war, and that is a fact. War is complex. Winter as a whole is a new phase of war. I'd say that a winter war takes place not only on the front line, but inside cities too. Because of the large number of drones used by the enemy, because of the large number of missiles, including ballistic, etc. And that's why a winter war is difficult.
Zelensky does not want to admit it, but the war is showing all signs of a stalemate, and some Western leaders are showing signs of Ukraine fatigue, especially as the conflict between Israel and Hamas takes all their attention. And so, calls for a ceasefire between Moscow and Kiev are also growing, but Zelensky is adamant. There will be no peace talks under the current conditions. Meanwhile, the Russian president on Wednesday blamed Ukraine for the lack of peace talks. He once again claimed that Russia was ready for discussions to resume. Analysts saying that Putin's comments were designed to pile pressure on the West and push Ukraine back to the negotiating table. This is not new. Putin and other Russian officials have routinely claimed the Kremlin is ready to talk peace, but the Kremlin has also stated its condition. Ukraine must accept the current ground realities, including territorial claims on the battleground as it stands today. Remember, last year, Russia annexed 4 provinces of Ukraine after referendums were held here that the West described as a sham. Reports say that the West, as well as some Ukrainian politicians, are beginning to prepare the people for a peaceful settlement of the conflict. How much of this is true? We don't have the answers currently, but what we do know is that the West is getting war weary. After all, how long do they plan to flood Ukraine with weapons and money? And in Ukraine, certain preparations will also have to be made for possible negotiations to happen. For starters, revoking a decree that banned talks with Russia and an acceptance of Moscow's annexations. Will Ukraine compromise? We will have to wait and watch. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.